Today we're talking about Cemetery Man, aka Dellamorte Dellamore, among a few other titles, in our Deep Cut segment. Let's get into it. Hey, this is Mike from FearShop.com. Today's Deep Cut features Cemetery Man, aka Dellamorte Dellamore, from 1994, directed by Michele Soavi, who was a protege of Dario Argento, and stars Rupert Everett as Francesco Dellamorte, François Hadji-Lazaro as Gnaghi, and the beautiful Anna Falchi simply as she. Before we get into the movie, let's talk about this Deep Cut segment. Basically, we try to get some underrated horror movies that a lot of people may not have heard of and want to shed some light on them so that you guys can go and check out these movies and, hopefully get back to me and let me know what you think of them. Before we get into Cemetery Man any further, make sure you're smashing that like button for me. You're going to love this video, so just smash it now for me. Sign up for notifications, hit that bell so you know when the next video drops. Of course, make sure you're subscribing and leave your comments. Definitely want to hear from everybody. Need to know what other types of videos you would like to see. Folks are liking this Deep Cut segment, so we're definitely going to be doing a lot more of these. Always love uncovering new movies myself, and I try to get any help that I can to find some of those movies that I may have not have even seen either. Alright, so Cemetery Man, horrible name. So Dellamorte Dellamore, written by Tiziano Sclavi and Gianno Romoli, and again, exquisitely directed by Michele Soavi, a protege of Dario Argento. The film's based on the novel Dylan Dog, created by Tiziano Sclavi. Michele Soavi also directed Stage Fright, The Church, The Sect. He was the second director on Tenebrae, assistant director on A Blade in the Dark, Phenomena, Demons, and Opera. How the hell is that for a resume? Pretty good. So, when I say this film's exquisitely directed, I mean it. It's a beautiful film. At times, the film's an artsy type of film. At other times, it's a gore fest. Still, at other times, there's plenty of boobs that men love to see in horror. Speaking of Anna Falchi, wow. Just wow. She was one hot lady. Still is, actually. But I digress. This is a zombie movie with a brain. And I don't just mean brains like Return of the Living Dead. Take Romero films as what zombie movies should be like. They are more than just gore. Soavi mixes together two genres that are never really compatible. Tongue-in-cheek horror comedy and European art house style films. Somehow he makes this work. There is philosophical dialogue about the blurry line between what's alive and what is dead. The camera work is simply stunning. There's wide-angle shots, slow-motion shots of water and fabrics. Talking about it really doesn't do it justice. You have to watch the film and appreciate it for yourself. There's even a scene with Francesco and she, played by Anna Falchi, where they are kissing in the crypt with the shroud over their heads. The shot mimics the painting The Lovers by René Magritte. So you can definitely see just attention to detail everywhere. All right, now on to the characters a little bit. Rupert Everett does a wonderful job as Francesco Dellamorte. He's a man who enjoys the company of the dead more than the living. He's a caretaker in a cemetery where some of the dead come back to life 7 days after burial. He calls them returners. He disposes of them, doesn't seem to be bothered because he considers it as part of his job. I can't imagine anyone else playing this role after having watched this film so many times. His line delivery comes with the perfect mix of sarcasm and cynicism. At times he shows no emotion. Then there's the romance that continues to be more strange as the film goes on. Everett did go on to becoming, a little bit bigger in the US later in the 90s. He even talked to Soavi about doing an Americanized remake of Dellamorte Dellamore. It never really materialized though. Can't say I'm too hardly bothered by it simply because, I think Dellamorte Dellamore just stands well on its own. I don't think it really needs an Americanized version or anything like that. I get it. They want to widen the audience, but, it's a really good film as it is. Alright, film also stars François Hadji-Lazaro as Gnaghi, Dellamorte's simple-minded assistant who never gets any love. He just fits in this movie. Again, I think it ended up being really good casting, really good acting throughout. And, I'd be remiss if I did not mention the score by Manuel de Sica. There are sync sounds, there's gothic sounds. We move on to orchestral suites. I'm a big fan of a bunch of scores from horror movies such as Demons and Suspiria. Add Dellamorte Dellamore to that list as well. It's one of those things, people think I'm weird, but I'll just listen to a horror score and just kind of concentrate on that, while I might be, doing some editing or something like that. And I really like it. And this is one of those top horror soundtracks of all time. So, again, then there's Anna Falchi, who, quite honestly, is in the movie for eye candy. She is simply stunning and adds a lot to the movie. She's literally one of the main three characters in the movie. It's a shame, that she didn't really break out a little bit more. She's had a nice career, though. I'll give her that. So, good for her. I would just wish that she had broken out a little bit more. Now, in terms of watching this movie, hopefully you own a copy of Dellamorte Dellamore, because the film's always hard to find. It was hard to find when it came out. It eventually got a little bit easier to find, and then went dark again. I can't find it streaming anywhere these days. And if you're a cable subscriber, I doubt that you would see it there. I've never seen it playing on a cable channel before. I'll admit, most cable channels, I almost never see much in the way of Italian horror, not even Suspiria. Those kinds of films just don't make it onto cable channels. With some of these streaming services, sure, you can sometimes find them. But, having the DVD copy is very helpful in this film. And the English translation of Dellamorte Dellamore is Of Death, of Love. It's also the Australian title for the film. The film's also known as Pelo Amor, Pelo Morte in Brazil, translated to For Love and Death in Portuguese. The film's also known as Demons 95 in Japan. That's an interesting name, to say the least. So the hard rock tune that you can hear every time there's a motorcycle on the screen is an instrumental version of Ozzy Osbourne's Hellraiser from the 1991 album No More Tears. Great album, obviously I'm a huge metal fan, so it's always great to see that. I still remember how stoked I was to hear songs that you wouldn't expect in movies, like Iron Maiden's Flash of the Blade, playing in Phenomena. It's just hearing these, now it's probably a little more normal to see that stuff in movies. I've heard Godsmack in one of the Return of the Living Dead movies. There's metals all over the place. But just hearing something like this back in 91 wasn't something that happened a lot. I know there was 1986's Trick or Treat that, featured Ozzy and Gene Simmons as actors in the movie as well. And that had a pretty metal soundtrack. There's other films like Shocker had a very metal soundtrack. The Crow, there's a lot of films that ended up doing it. So it's pretty cool. So definitely this movie's something you got to check out. It's just a visual masterpiece. I'll say it. It is, part Dead Alive, part art house style Suspiria type of movie and all. You can definitely see what Soavi had learned from Argento at the time. Again, look at the resume that this guy was on. He was executive producing, or at least second type producer on some massive Italian horror films. So, you learn from the best, and the good ones take all they can, consume it, and then put it into their own style in other movies. And I think that's what Michele Soavi did with Dellamorte Dellamore. Again, the U.S. title of Cemetery Man is about as average and lame as you can probably be. I'll be honest. They should have done a little bit better on that. All right. So that's it for this video. Definitely want you smashing that like button for me. See, if you made it this far, obviously you liked the video. So I was right on that one. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you're commenting on the videos. Make sure, most importantly, just keep it horror.